to go live, I think of Bill O'Reilly.
Oh God.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
We'll do it live. All right. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is the first episode of the Bored as Hell podcast. What is the Bored as Hell podcast? Well, basically, it's a movie review podcast between myself, Abbott McDonald, and our good friend Andy Wilson. Basically telling you what movies you should go see and which ones you shouldn't to keep you from being bored as hell at the movie theaters. We'll cover everything from new releases, obviously. So for this episode, we're going to talk about both Tomorrowland and Mad Max Fury Road. And also, every episode, we're going to give you a recommendation. So whether it's a classic movie you need to see, whether it's something cool or new, or some crazy good deal out there on a Blu-ray you need to own, we'll have it. But just to hand it over to Andy here, he's going to give us a brief kind of rundown on his view of movie ratings, kind of on a scale of 1 to 10, what a 1 looks like and what a 10 looks like.
Yeah, so here at Bored as Hell and over at Big Shiny Robot, we've been rating movies on a scale of 1 to 10. I tend to take a look at this from my background in social science and statistics, where I think of the world as basically a bell curve. And the vast majority of movies that are going to be out there are going to be in that kind of big middle area. So if I'm giving something somewhere between a 3.5 and a 7.5, then, this is a good, it's just kind of an average movie, but it's in the middle. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily horrible. A 5 is a perfectly acceptable movie. A 6 is a perfectly acceptable movie. Anytime where I'm kind of 8 or above, I'm pretty enthusiastic about what this is and really think that you should go see it. But when I'm talking about a 10, a perfect 10, those are even more rare than you would expect. And basically for every one truly, truly horrible movie that you should avoid like the plague, that is a 1, a movie like Unfriended, then there is also going to be a companion piece, a 10 out there, and like a Mad Max Fury Road. So when I give a movie a 10, that I'm really, really going after it. If I'm giving it a 9 or a 9.5, it's still a really amazing movie. But that's kind of how we see things. So if you hear us give something a 5 or a 6, that's not damning it with faint praise. That's just saying, no, it's an average movie and it might be worth your time. It might not be, but listen to what we have to say and judge for yourself of whether it's worth your money to go see it in a theater or whether this might be something you want to pick up on Blu-ray and watch at home.
Yeah, because, I mean, the big thing to keep in mind, a 5 is average. It's completely right in the middle. It doesn't mean it's horrible. It doesn't mean it's the greatest thing ever. It just means maybe you should red box it. Because here's the deal is, thankfully, I know you in Texas, I know it's not quite as expensive to go see the movies as, say, LA or San Diego where I grew up. And Utah, it's definitely one of the cheaper places to go. But, you can, if you go take a family of 4 to the movies and buy popcorn and soda and snacks and heaven forbid you're seeing it in IMAX 3D, I mean, that's like a trip to Disneyland.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of money. So, obviously we want to make sure you get the best bang for your buck and, also have some fun while doing it. So, speaking of having fun, our first movie we're going to talk about is Tomorrowland. So, Andy, why don't you give us a rundown and then let's talk about it.
Tomorrowland is inspired by Walt Disney's vision of the future, which you can see at Disneyland in Tomorrowland. And both Adam and I agreed that the best way to see this movie is going into it not knowing a whole lot about it. Really, all you have to know, young girl finds a pin with Tomorrowland on it. She picks it up and she's transported to this faraway place and sees this beautiful vision of the future. There's a whole lot more to it. That's really all you've got to know. But for people who are really into Disney, who know the history of the 1964 World's Fair and Disney's involvement in that, and Disneyland, you're going to see so many Easter eggs and really enjoy yourself with this. But just go in and sit back and enjoy the story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of funny that I think you and I are one of maybe the 2 people who liked it. because if you check out like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, it's not getting the best reviews, and actually its lack of box office draw is where the Hollywood Reporter is claiming killed Tron 3, which kind of sucks because I was excited for that. But yeah, it's definitely the most Disney movie of any Disney movie I've seen. You're obviously it's a Tomorrowland, of course, is one of the most famous parts of Disneyland. It's getting more popular now with the Star Wars attractions coming, that they own Star Wars. And this movie will remind you many, many times that they own Star Wars. Actually, in somewhat hilarious ways, too. But yeah, you've got It's a Small World at the 1964 World Fair. You've got all kinds of cool gadgets and stuff. And it's really, really, it's really fun. It is a slow burn. It's not going to grab you by the seat of your pants and, throw you out the window, which I think some people were expecting. I know talking to some other people, they thought it was going to be more of an action adventure summer movie, and that's not what this is. There is some action, yes, but it's more. I mean, wouldn't you agree that it's almost more about basically how we can fix humanity, and just kind of shows us a ray of hope in with climate change and genocide and everything else that's horrible happening here. It kind of showed us a glimmer of hope as far as how we can change that.
Exactly. It was a very thoughtful movie. And I had a lot of people say, so I shouldn't take my kids to this because this sounds kind of thinky. And I'm like, no, absolutely not. I brought my 10-year-old daughter with me, and she absolutely loved it. There's plenty in here that is kid-friendly, and in a lot of ways, it reminds us what it is to see the world through the eyes of a child, and and to look back and have that hope for the future. Really, I think a lot of the hate towards this movie comes from people who are basically being cynical assholes about it. They don't like the movie's message that the power of hope and the power of giving a damn about things can actually help make things better. And I think that's a great message. I think it's a great message to be sharing with our kids. So I was really glad to take my 10-year-old. However, to be fair, I'm not planning on taking my 7-year-old. I think he might get bored because as much as he likes Disney, as much as he likes those things, it doesn't have a talking raccoon and a giant tree, and he's not going to enjoy it as much as he did Guardians of the Galaxy. So that's okay. Know your kids, definitely, but I think that it's got a good message, and maybe it's not for everyone to go see in the theaters, but there is a lot good here, and I can't recommend this movie enough.
I mean, definitely, yeah. It's not a kids movie. It's most people take Disney, automatically think about that. But like you said, could a 10-year-old like your 10-year-old enjoy it? Yes. Any younger than that, I probably would recommend, because they'll just be bored and they'll piss off everyone next to you. I do want to talk about a couple things though, as far as acting goes. Obviously, George Clooney is Frank Walker. He's one of the main characters. Britt Robertson plays Casey Newton, who is the girl who finds the pan and kind of stumbles into Tomorrowland. But the really standout for me was Raffi Cassidy. She plays this character named Athena. I'll just say that she has ties with Tomorrowland. I don't want to give it too much more information because, again, I don't want to get into the spoiler area. But she was absolutely fantastic as a young actress. She definitely has a lot of acting chops. She knows what she's doing. Like I mentioned in our review we did for Big Shiny Robot, the last child actor I can think of who really came across that strongly and that well was Haley Steinfeld from True Grit. So I'm very, very excited to see what she's going to do with her career going forward. And for me, actually, I'd say she's probably the best part of the movie.
I absolutely agree. And there are, we made it sound like there isn't any action in this movie, which
and there is. There's robots and there's shooting and flying.
And she takes on some of these robots, and she's this little kid, and it is
when she fights him in the little the souvenir shop. I forgot about that.
That is probably my favorite scene right there, where she's taking on Keegan-Michael Key from Key and Peele.
Greatest cameo ever.
He was excellent in that. That was a really great scene, and she is great both in those action sequences and in having the real heart of the movie. Brad Bird, as you may remember from some of his previous films, really injects a lot of heart into a lot of these characters, and she is she delivers a lot of that in ways that like the Iron Giant really does, in the way that the main family in The Incredibles does. And I just, she's absolutely great. And it's amazing that she's able to outshine Clooney. And they have a really great rapport between the two of them as well. So bravo to Clooney. But really, Raffi Cassidy, she's great.
Yeah, definitely. So, so like we said, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a solid 8 out of 10 on this. I think it is. I think the third act in the end has a little bit of problems. It kind of tries to switch themes to be a different movie than I was kind of led up to be. And like I said, I love the theme of hope. I walked out with a big smile on my face. At certain times, it did kind of feel like they were pounding it into your head. So it did get a little bit preachy for me, but not enough to take away my enjoyment of the movie. So I'm a solid 8 out of 10 on this one.
I'm exactly the same place, 8 out of 10. And unlike you, I like happiness. I think we need more of it. There's a speech that Hugh Laurie gives at the very end that, I just wish I could put on repeat because it rings so true. And I wish everyone would listen to it. So be ready. It is a little bit heavy-handed, and you're right. The third act is a little bit of a shift, but 8 out of 10, and I think people should go check out Tomorrowland.
Yes, and maybe if you buy enough tickets, they'll resurrect Tron 3.
Oh, that's a whole other issue. I saw a couple people say they're starting to agree with Simon Pegg that maybe Marvel and Disney and so on are dumbing down sci-fi, and that makes me sad. I wanted to see a Tron 3, but
well, and I was talking with a friend on Facebook last night because he was pretty upset by this because he went back and watched it again. And I love the first Tron movie. My mom hates it because she was going to labor with my little brother when my dad and I were watching it, and she walked out with her suitcase and tells my dad, "Honey, it's time to go to the hospital." And his response, I shit you not, was, "Oh wait, the movie's almost over." So she's never ever liked that movie. But it was brought up about the dumbing down of sci-fi, and we were just talking briefly about Tron Legacy, which is in no way a perfect movie. It's a lot of fun, but there were some really cool philosophies and ideas about humanity and consciousness and everything else that was brought up there and that was touched upon briefly that I would have loved to have seen as maybe explored in the third movie. So we'll see about that. But one thing I will mention, if anyone's familiar with the Graham Norton show, basically he's a British talk show host, really funny guy. Last night's episode, he actually had Hugh Laurie, George Clooney, and Britt Robertson on as guests for the first half of the show. So if you want to see George Clooney get drunk off his own tequila and make fun of other people, it was a lot of fun. So if you have BBC America, highly recommend checking it out. It's a lot of fun.
I'm going to have to check that out. That sounds excellent.
Next week, he's got Chris Pratt and so one of the other people from Jurassic World. So
it doesn't matter who else. It's Chris Pratt. Chris Pratt and the empty chair that Clint Eastwood
was talking to. Yeah. They come out. Yeah. So, all right. Well, our second movie we're going to talk about is Mad Max Fury Road. So, Mad Max Fury Road is pretty much the movie that shouldn't have happened. I won't go into detail here, but the production problems they had absolutely meant this should never have been made. They filmed in Australia in the desert. Well, one year it rained too much and flowers were everywhere, so they couldn't record it. Just been working on it forever. It's fallen through multiple times. But this does take place in the same universe as the Mad Max series trilogy back in the 80s. This time, however, Tom Hardy is taking over as our main character, Max. Basically, he's kind of like he gets being almost like a feral animal. He gets captured by this cult of guys called the War Boys. And basically, he's being strung up and used as a blood bag because these war boys are people who have been irradiated so much they have tumors, they're going to die of cancer. So he's used to pretty much be a living blood transfusion until he dies into one of the main war boys, played by Nicholas Hoult, who I didn't even realize was him until about halfway through the movie. All this takes place at the Big Citadel. It's owned by the warlord Immortan Joe, who is played by Hugh Keese-Byrne, who was in the first Mad Max movie. Basically, he controls the water, so he controls plants and everything else, and he's just kind of a vicious warlord who sends his pretty much right-hand woman, Imperator Furiosa, played by Charlize Theron, on a basically a, I don't know if you call it a raiding party or a war party to go to a nearby town to get supplies. Well, in this big, huge war rig, which is all these crazy contraptions all welded together. Well, on the way there, she decides to go rogue and break off from the camp. So Morton Joe sends people after her because we find out that she has kidnapped his harem, basically these young female women who are basically his breeding supply. He's trying to have a healthy male heir to take over for him. And she's saying, nope, this isn't right. So I'm going to set them free, take them to the green place, this mythical place that's like a Garden of Eden in this whole war-torn, desolated area. Meanwhile, Mad Max is along for the ride because he's still, a blood bag, giving this guy his blood infusion. And what precedes is a 2-hour car chase that has some of the most exciting, intense visuals and just stunts and action you've ever seen in a movie. People are saying, it's just an action movie, there's no plot. This is one of the best action movies you'll ever see, if not the best. It's George Miller returning to show us that, all these other filmmakers have kind of looked at him as their inspiration for action movies over the last 20 years. And he came back after doing Babe, Pig in the City and showed them all up. It's insane. Your eyes will hurt afterwards. You'll be tired. But you will not have an experience like this. I can't think of the last time I had this much fun in the movie and just walked out that amazed.
Remember when Warner Brothers was going to let George Miller make a Justice League movie, and then they're like, "Nope, never mind. No, we don't like where you're going with this."
Yeah, like when they had Joss Whedon for the Wonder Woman movie too. So
it was exactly the same time period. I hope all those people at Warner Brothers got fired, because looking at this movie, this is not only, in my opinion, the best movie of the year. This is the best movie of the last several years and one of the best movies of the decade. I am just constantly blown away when I think about how amazing this film is. Yes, it's an action movie, and there's huge explosions and car chases, but they do so much with so little in terms of dialogue and characterization. And there's these tiny little moments where sideways glances mean so much, and the actors and the director are just keyed in on exactly where they're going with this film. And I mentioned at the beginning, I don't frequently give out 10 out of 10 ratings for things. This was very easily for me. I'm like, 10 out of 10. I haven't seen anything this good since I saw Avengers. This was
it's
absolutely amazing.
Obviously easy, 10 out of 10 here. There's so much going on, and I try not to read comments or things on Facebook or reviews because people are stupid most times when they're just yelling and bitching and saying horrible things. But the most common thing I'm seeing from people who didn't enjoy this movie was that, there's no plot, there's no story. And actually at work the other day, I had a customer who came in and she mentioned that she somehow fell asleep in it, which I didn't think that was possible. But she said, there was just no plot. And so it was funny because I had been hanging out with a friend the night after I saw the movie, because I couldn't stop thinking about it. I was going over my head. I mean, I went home and watched every single behind the scenes featurette, and I was just going crazy. And we spent like an hour and a half just talking about the War Boys and because they worship the V8. So if you see the movie, they put their hands together in a V, and that's they worship the engine. And so we spent like an hour and a half sober, mind you, discussing them and their religion. And I kind of summed up our conversation in 2 minutes. And she just stared back at me and she's like, "You got all that out of that one scene in the movie?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, and that was just one scene. I mean, I could spend 3 more hours on the next 20 minutes of this movie." And she's like, "Oh, I need to go watch it again because I just didn't see that." So yeah, you've got to go back in there. There's so much visual storytelling. I mean, there's very little dialogue. What's there is necessary to move the plot forward and to make these characters grow and evolve. But so much is told with a glance, like you said, with a look, with the way a scene is shot, the way the action happens, the way characters design their cars. I mean, you look at Immortan Joe, his car is like I'm bad with cars, we'll say El Caminos, welded together. It's like his big tank car. And the whole point was, in the middle of the wilderness where there's nothing, there's desolation, having one of everything makes you rich. Having two of something makes you powerful. and that was just showing that he's got enough wealth and enough power to have two of one thing. And it's mind bending. I went and saw it again the second day. I couldn't sleep that night. I was in bed thinking about the movie, and I just couldn't stop it. I mean, I haven't had a movie grab me like this and make me that invested in the characters in this universe that I would never want to visit since God, I can't even think of the last one. Yeah, fantastic movie, easy 10 out of 10. I've been blasting the soundtrack in my car on loop for the last week and a half. This is my go-see movie of the year. It's probably up in my top 5 movies of all time. And I know it's not like I'm gushing, but this movie deserves it.
It's just so absolutely amazing. It definitely deserves multiple in-theater viewings, but I really cannot wait for the Blu-ray. So you can just sit there and like pause and look at these tiny little things. It's just so absolutely amazing. The craftsmanship that Miller put into this, that Theron and Hardy and Holt brought to their characters, and even the smaller characters as well. They're just it's so absolutely amazing. And on top of that, I think it makes a really great counterpoint to Tomorrowland. And okay, Mad Max came out a week, 2 weeks before Tomorrowland. I can't remember which.
Oh, it should have been a week, I believe.
Yeah. So when I saw Tomorrowland, I'm like, this is the opposite side of the same coin.
Exactly.
We have these opportunities to look into the future, and we can either end up in this Mad Max world, and here's how it's going to go down, and we see exactly what the consequences of that are like, and exactly what the things are that reinforce that. And we see, patriarchy and religion and capitalism and greed and inhumanity and so on and so forth. Or we can take the Tomorrowland view of things and focus on hope and vision and not being cynical. And I felt like both of these filmmakers, both Bird and Miller, were coming at this same message about fearing for the future and hoping that we can find a way around it. There's been a huge dialogue about Mad Max and feminism and whether this is a feminist movie or not. And I think that's a really interesting question. And it's like, yeah, in one sense, it absolutely is a feminist movie, because you have a strong female character, trademark Joss Whedon, and
who really is. It could have been called Furiosa for all we care, because Mad Max is very much, almost like a sidecar character in his movie.
Yeah, he kind of is, and that's what's great about it is, and she could have been a male character, but she was a female character, and she specifically takes on someone who is not just a patriarch, but a patriarch who is using sex and sex slavery as part of his rule and as part of his control over resources. And that was huge. And so, yes, it is a feminist movie, but it's also so much more. It's a movie definitely about equality and giving a shit about other people and working together with people, even if it's not in your immediate interest to do so. But it's just as much a movie about religion and ecology and resources and so on and so forth. So to only say this is just about feminism is to completely ignore a lot of what else is going on. So I loved it for that it has so many different layers, and just like the cave on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back, what you see in this movie is largely what you take with you. And it's a great experience because there's so many different facets to this beautiful gem.
And that was one thing that we were, again, because we've been talking about this nonstop for almost 2 weeks now. Like I said, it's a lot about Charlize Theron's character, and she's a badass, is amazing. And Mad Max is kind of that secondary character, but his story arc is just utterly fantastic. I mean, he starts the movie pretty much as a feral animal that can't even talk. I mean, there's some narration that's Mad Max from the future kind of talking back on it. but he's this hermit dude with like long hair, and he's got PTSD. He keeps on seeing his family who's died because of something that he did or didn't do. And then, you know, basically when he first interacts with, you know, Furiosa and has to do things, he's living for himself, and he's grunting and you know, Mad Max, do this, kind of thing. And then by the end of the movie, he's redeemed himself and realizes who he is. And so at the end of the movie, when he tells Furiosa, is like, my name is Max, that's the first time he says that, you know.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like he's finally faced his demons. He overcame himself by being the man he was supposed to be, and, you know, being the hero of the movie. Even though Furiosa is the hero as well, Miller was brilliant in giving him that chance as well. So it wasn't like, oh, it has to be him or has to be her who's the best of the best. You know, they both had their chance to shine and grow as characters. Same thing with Nux, Nicholas Holt's character as a war boy. He's got a great arc in the movie, from this, you know, again, religious fanatic who's worships a Morton Joe, and to just becoming, like, again, a great hero in the story as well. So best movie of the year, hands down. I'm really excited to see what the next one does, and I cannot wait to binge watch this on Blu-ray.
I think Nux is also my favorite character, and he does have the best character arc of any of these things. I read an interesting theory of when Max finally tells Furiosa, my name is Max, it could possibly be that he has forgotten, that he's so insane out of his mind that he's forgotten that he has a name. He's haunted by all of these ghosts of his past, but he's no longer an individual. He's just in survival mode, and he's just about himself and getting out of situations, and he doesn't, it's just about surviving. And for him to say, I'm actually going to join up with you, and I'm going to help you, and I believe in this, and give them some guidance and some help, I think was, you know, the redemptive power of Furiosa and the other people around her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really great as well. So there, again, just so many layers to this movie.
Yeah, so again, we can't recommend it enough. If you haven't seen it yet, go see it again. If you've already seen it, go see it, you know, 3 more times. It's, you know, we've been really blessed with some really amazing movies this year. I mean, Kingsman was fantastic. We got Avengers, Tomorrowland, now
Ex Machina. I really liked Ex Machina.
Oh yeah, we've been really blessed with some really good movies this early in the year. So summer action movies, you've got a lot to live up to. So Jurassic World, you're on notice.
We'll see. I have high hopes for Jurassic World. I have hopes for a lot of other movies throughout the summer, but then we're gonna end off the year with a Star Wars movie too. So there's just so much to look forward to. It's an endless feast of cinema and film delights, and even if some of them don't completely deliver, I'm looking at you, Fantastic Four reboot.
Oh god, no, yeah. I'm nervous about. I'm more nervous about that movie than Ant-Man. And that's another discussion for another time. But I loved Chronicle. I thought Josh Trank did a lot with it, but obviously he got in a bit over his head with this one. So hopefully, fingers crossed, will be fun, because I mean, it's got a decent cast. So
I hope so. I always want it to be a good movie. I never go into a movie hoping, oh, I really hope this is a real crap fest. And, you know, you go in with an open mind and don't expect too much. Like I saw San Andreas this week. That's a disaster movie. So what?
Things blow up.
Things blow up. It's fine. You enjoy yourself. Grab some corn and you're okay. And that's
if you go into a movie with any kind of, again, I try to go into movies as completely blind as I can, like I did with Tomorrowland. Obviously, you know, your Avengers, your Star Wars. I mean, I'm a huge fan, so I'm going online, absorbing trailers. I'm not doing the whole frame by frame BS, but trying to go into a movie as blind as possible with no preconceived notion, you know, is how I try to approach what we do. I know with Unfriended, the trailers looked horrible. I saw one trailer, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be horrible. But I'd read one review online from someone who liked it, and I went in, I was like, cool, let's just see how this goes. And as you saw from my reviews, it was a piece of dog turd. But I really did go in hoping for something fun. I love horror movies, and I was hoping to find something that was going to be, maybe Blair Witch for the, the millennial generation, and instead I got MTV's real world bullshit. So you never know what you're going to get.
Thank you for taking that bullet for us. I'm glad I did not have to see Unfriended.
Yeah, good for you. So anyways, that's it for our movie reviews. Andy, anything you want to recommend for this week? Or
yeah, I want to recommend everyone should go out and get a Hulu Plus subscription, and here's why. TV's over. It's time to catch up on all of our TV shows. There's a lot of it that's on Hulu Plus. You can go check it out. But coming in a few weeks, Hulu is going to put every single season of Seinfeld on there.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so that's reason enough right there. But it's also a great way to go back and catch up on The Simpsons, catch up on The Flash, catch up on Supernatural, anything else that you've missed. And this is very important, and I can't emphasize this enough. They have every Criterion movie available on Hulu as well. So it's, if you're not sure, we're going to talk about Criterion Collection movies. You're like, hey, I've always wondered about Bicycle Thieves. What's that movie like? You can go check it out on Hulu, and then if you like it, go buy the Criterion Blu-ray.
Right, and that actually segues into my recommendation. So for those who don't know, which is fine because I didn't know about this for a long time, Criterion basically, it's a very, very small company. I think they've got like 15 or 30 employees who have gone out there, and they're film lovers and film buffs, and they've picked the best of the best movies of the last 100 plus years of film history, and they oftentimes work directly with the director or with the people who made the movie. They take the original negatives or the digital prints, they clean them up, make them look nice, put a ton of really cool special features on there, and then put them in a fancy package and release them. So they do about I think 3 to 5 movies a month. They've done Tootsie, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, Seven Samurai, pretty much all the Wes Anderson movies. But just basically a lot of independent and also foreign films, but films everyone who says everyone should see. They're fantastic. But the drawback is they're expensive. I mean, if you go to your Barnes & Noble or your FYEs or anywhere but online, you're looking to spend $40 to $50 for a movie. Now you do get a lot. Like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World has like 5 Blu-rays, a DVD, and 3 books in it. So you're getting your money's worth. But the cool thing is not only can you see these on Hulu, but Costco has started carrying them. So every single month, Costco gets in a certain selection of these movies. They change every month, so they'll never be back. You have to go in store to get them, but they're $20. So like I was down there today. The one for this month is Seven Samurai, which is one of the best movies of all time, if not the best movie of all time. You must see it. And then also Fantastic Mr. Fox. So if you're a Wes Anderson fan, we mentioned George Clooney, great voice acting role for him. So definitely check that out. Check out Hulu Plus. And if you haven't caught Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. talking about TV, interestingly enough, Netflix is doing the whole season 2 of S.H.I.E.L.D. starting next month as well, before it's even available on DVD or Blu-ray. So if you're trying to catch up on that, the show that got much better in the second season, that's your place to go.
Absolutely. Yeah, so summer is a great time to catch our breath and catch up on any TV we missed. And man, those Criterions, those are great. I'm gonna have to go to Costco and get both Seven Samurai and Fantastic Mr. Fox, because of the dozens of movies that I can think of, like I need to have the Criterion edition of this. Those are 2 of them.
So cool. Well, everyone, thank you very much for sticking with us. Like I said, we're first episode of Board as Hell podcast is in the can. So thank you much for hanging out. Definitely check us out on our website, www.boardashellcast.com. We're also on Facebook, facebook.com/boardashellpodcast, and Twitter @boardashellcast. I'm Adam. This is Andy. Thank you very much, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.